Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, a film whose influence ranges from pop culture to American politics, and is the first adult film to debut in mainstream cinema, breaking box office records back in 1972. The film, Deep Throat, celebrates 50 years. All that and more coming up on episode 308, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Harder, porn star, burlesque performer, and the creator of Porn to Be a Star. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT FM in Toronto and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada. From coast to coast to coast, the Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's gay and lesbian chart. And by the way, last week, Rainbow Country was #2, as well as being recognized as Canada's #2 LGBT podcast on Feedspot.com. So today, Deep Throat, a film written and directed by Gerard Damiano, who passed away in 2008. In 2022, this iconic adult film celebrates 50 years. I'll be joined by the adult children of director Gerard Damiano Jr., Christar Damiano, as well as artist and businessperson Robin Leonardi. We'll find out about what they have planned for 50 years of Deep Throat, including a world tour, the film's influence on American politics, and so much more. Plus in hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. And on this episode, I'm featuring some Canadian disco, some East Coast Killa Fiddler, as well as a spotlight on gender non-binary artist Angel Baribeau. But when I return, Deep Throat, starting off with the writer and director himself, Gerard Damiano.
The phone rings. I got a message from the mayor. He's going to call me back the next day. I get the call, and he said, if you'd accept, we'd like to honor you with the key to the city. There was an event later that year in May. Just a key, right? Like, key to what? A decent job, a good singing career. It's really a metaphor, but it's history. So a reporter wants to talk to me and says, so it's a key, right? Like, what's the big deal? I said, well, not everybody gets the key. So I looked it up, and I guess it is kind of a big deal.
The date, May 17th, 2018, when trans activist Susan Gapka made history by becoming the first trans woman to be presented with the key to the city of Toronto. By the way, past recipients include Rush and the Raptors.
Hi, I'm Saida Garrett, co-writer of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mr. Mark Tara.
It was the first time that anyone ever treated sex openly, honestly, humorously, as though we were doing nothing that we had to be ashamed about. It shows you if you're gay, it's okay to be gay. If you're heterosexual, it's okay to be heterosexual. Whatever it is that you feel like you want to do, whatever it is, don't be ashamed of it. Deep Throat did that.
To all of you, to Gerard Jr., to Christar, to Robin, thank you all for being here, to have your voices, your stories be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that. Gerard Jr., you are a filmmaker, you are a visual artist. Talk to me about your visual art, first of all. How would you describe the art that you do, your visual style?
Well, I've always been visually oriented since I was a child. I always liked to draw. And when I was very, very young, my father saw what I was drawing and he said, you should be drawing storyboards. And I was maybe, 4 years old, 5 years old. So he kind of showed me the format, like on these comic strips. And so I've been, very, very interested in visual arts my whole life. I went to Rhode Island School of Design and studied illustration. I've illustrated, books and posters and all kinds of things, but also have worked as a filmmaker. And I feel that, film, they call it, we just came from Cannes, they refer to it as the seventh art. And I've always felt that that film and filmmaking kind of encompasses and incorporates all the arts together, because it's not just visual. You introduce audio, you have story, you have different actors and so forth. And so it's very collaborative and brings in all the arts together. So I made adult films. I worked alongside my father and learned the craft right on the set the way he did. Went on to make films, but after having worked with him on film, I hesitate to say film in reference to some of the shot on video features that I was involved in later. When video happened, the market became glutted with content. The quality really fell apart. And so, I stopped working on those films, not because I had any trouble with the subject matter, but because there was really no room for artistic expression. It was just about, can you do this quicker and cheaper and so on. So currently I'm involved in, I've been working on a documentary film about our father and his career. Deep Throat was just one chapter in his story. And we feel that his own story is very compelling because, he went on to make much better films. The work that he did touched so many people in so many different ways. And not everybody was for him. He had a lot of detractors and was prosecuted, by the U.S. government, by the religious right, and so forth. And there are so many things that he dealt with 50 years ago that he would never dream that we'd still be fighting these same fights today. And so we've had this opportunity to restore the film, which we feel is an important film. He would tell you it's not a good film, okay? He never pretended that it was a very good film. He felt that it was the best that they could do at the time. They were a young crew. My father had just been learning on the set. This was the fourth film that he made and the most ambitious. They were all very proud to be shooting in 35 millimeter color, which, most people don't have a conception of that today. But when you talk about Deep Throat, it's still considered to be the most profitable film of all time. And that's not to say that it made more money than the Titanic or Black Panther or whatever, but compared to the cost of making the film, the return on the investment, no other film has come close. But my father would be, really proud to say that for $25,000, which was and I think that might have even included the marketing and advertising, but it was, under $25,000 that the film was made for. It made so much money, but he would be, quick to say most of that money was spent on film and processing, because you could get actors and actresses to work for next to nothing, but you had to pay Kodak cash on the barrelhead, he would say, that you couldn't get film for free, and it certainly wasn't cheap to process it. So most of that $25,000 went to make the actual film, to process the negative, to make the print, and so on. And that most of the people that worked on the film went to Miami on their own dime. They paid their own way. They drove down to be involved in this process because they were proud to be making a 35 millimeter film. They were excited to be involved.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
Christar Damiano, you and Gerard Jr., you guys are siblings. You are also a filmmaker. You're also a sound healer. Well done. Talk to me about those early days when your dad was making Deep Throat. How would you describe those times, those days, those early days?
Well, it was very happy times for us as a family because we were so close as a family. Our parents never really kept anything secret from us, so we knew exactly what was happening. We kind of watched our dad's career blossom, and as he became more famous, it was more exciting for us. Unfortunately, with his fame didn't come very much money. But it was exciting for us to see that our dad was very passionate about what he was doing and that he got the opportunity to make a difference in the world and really change. At the time, he was the start of the sexual revolution. So I was very proud to call him my dad.
Nice. Robin Leonardi, hello.
Hello, Mark.
You are an artist. You are a business person. Talk to me about how you know the Damiano.
Okay, so I know Gerard Jr. and Christar Damiano because my mother was a pornographer. My mother was a pioneer in the adult film industry.
And an activist.
And so my mother and Gerard Sr. were colleagues. They were contemporaries. They collaborated on several projects together during the course of their career. And Gerard and Christar and I reunited after many years of having kind of, going our own way and growing up. And then we realized we lived about an hour away from each other here in Florida. Coincidences of coincidences. And then consequently, we kind of bonded. We became very good friends. We would spend Christmases and Thanksgiving and most of our holidays together, kind of like as the family that I never had because I was an only child. And then about 6 months or so ago, Gerard and I were having a conversation, and he was sharing with me his desire to bring a restored version of this iconic film to commemorate and honor his father on the anniversary of its 50th premiere. And I happened to say, well, let me know if I can help. And he said, well, no, I don't want you to just help. Like, I want you to come work with
Educate?
I want you to come work with me on this. So we've spent the past 4 months pretty much, just nose to the grindstone, rolling out this world tour, bringing awareness of the film to the masses. It's a film that people often will talk about, and it's iconic, but not a lot of people really know about it. And so we're trying to again, like you say, educate for certain. And Gerard and I, because our parents were in the same industry, we have a lot in common. And I know that he's passionate about telling his father's story and about restoring his films so that they can be seen in the manner they were intended when they were originally made. And so I wanted to, work together with him to help bring that vision to fruition.
Hello. How are you? Fine. How are you?
Good. We're not late or anything.
No, you're just in time. You'll have number 11. You're welcome. You'll have 12. Oh. Have a drink, sit down, relax, wait until your number's called.
What are we doing, holding a raffle here? I never win anything anyway.
Don't worry, honey. Everybody gets a little piece of this action.
Gerard Jr., 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of Deep Throat. And you guys are taking this on a world tour. Talk to me about what is happening during this world tour. What can people expect?
Well, we felt, and I'm speaking for my sister as well as myself, we felt that it was important to preserve our father's film because it was, it's really transcended film. We're not just talking about a movie. We're talking about a film that touched on so many different things in terms of the laws surrounding obscenity, the mafia's involvement of the film. That had its own spin where the film was prosecuted in that respect. There's been a lot of scandal about the film since it first came out. And we felt that whether you want to see it or not, you should have the right to see the film. And we wanted to preserve and restore the film so that you'd have the opportunity to see it the way our father had originally intended. Over the years, it's been bootlegged, it's been manipulated in different ways, things have been added, things have been taken away. We feel that it's important to present this film, at this time and, in the months to come as what we consider event cinema. That we're not streaming it, we're not selling it for theatrical release and to a wide audience. We're appearing and presenting the film ourselves. We understand that part of the importance of Deep Throat is that it really sparked a public dialogue, and it had people talking about sex and sexuality, about female empowerment, about female orgasm, and so forth. And so we want to present the film in such a way as to we invite questions from the audience. We have moderated talkbacks with panelists, and we can have historians that can put it in context. Christar and I will be available to answer questions about what we know of the truth of the making of the film. We can represent our father's perspective on it, and then open up to questions from the audience. And people are very curious about some of the stuff. There have been a lot of misinformation over the years about the film, and we see this as an opportunity to reopen that dialogue again, pose some of the same questions, and really examine, where we're at now 50 years later, because there were some struggles that our father had with censorship, with his right to expression, that we're still fighting those battles today. And, our father, I think, would be amazed had he lived to see the 50th anniversary, that we haven't, as a culture and as a species, evolved beyond this point right now, that we still, have this hypocrisy and this Puritanism in the United States.
Christar, talk to me about this tour that's happening. How did this idea come about to take this film on the road?
Well, as Gerard was saying, we wanted to preserve the film and give people the opportunity to see it as our dad had intended. And because it's not streaming or anything, we need to take it on the road so we can open it up to a lot of audiences. And when we did that, we found that there was a lot of buzz also in an international market. There are people in their countries that really are excited to see it, are excited to show it. So that's where the world tour came about. We're going to Bologna at the end of the month, and now Lisbon and Berlin and Vancouver and Montreal.
In Montreal and New York City. So, Robin, how did you decide on what cities you guys would visit with this film?
Well, several of these cities and specifically theaters that we have been working with have some kind of historical connection to the film. There are a handful that lend themselves more to films of this genre. So we've been very specific about who we're hoping to partner with. For example, in Montreal, we're working with a wonderful venue called the Cinema L'Amour, which is probably one of the last adult film theaters that actually shows 35 millimeter films in North America. If you get the opportunity to look them up online, they have a beautiful, red velvet seats, and it's very ornate. There's been a documentary made about the theater and the owners of the theater. We're working with Northwest Film Forum in Seattle. So what we're trying to do is get it in places that are relevant also to corresponding with when the original film premiered. So we're hoping we don't really have our LA date set yet because we're working with several venues in an attempt to find really the ones that are going to be best suited to allow us to have these kind of event cinema
experience.
Experience, exactly.
Yeah.
As opposed to just booking it in a theater where people will go and pay for a ticket and sit. We want to make it a full, rounded, experience.
And on that note, we will return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, I'm Eric Radford, Olympic and world champion figure skater, pianist, and composer, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Canada's LGBTQ2+ archives just released Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada. Order a copy from your local bookstore to dive into hundreds of loud and proud stories and photos of historical queer life in Canada from pre-1939 to today. Get your copy from your local bookstore. Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada.
Our Health, a Canada-wide 2S LGBTQIA+ community survey, is looking for your involvement. The Our Health survey aims to explore the current state of health among two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, and other sexually and gender diverse people in Canada. The study team especially wants to hear from community members who are living with chronic health conditions like diabetes, cancer, and fibromyalgia. This is to ensure that people living with conditions that are often underrepresented or less understood are included in this work. Participants will also have the opportunity to do a test at home to screen for COVID-19 antibodies, HIV, hepatitis C, and syphilis. All data collected will be used to advocate for programs, services, and policies that better support the health and well-being of 2S LGBTQIA+ people across Canada. All participants will receive a small honorarium for completing the survey. For more information, visit cbrc.net/our_health. That's cbrc.net/our_HEALTH.
Summer is in the air. It's a brand new month, and here's what's on tap for summer 2022. Mansions of the Moon. Award-winning and best-selling author Shyam Selvadurai will be my guest to talk about his powerful new novel, Mansions of the Moon. Plus, married couple and Broadway veterans Stephen Hanna and Brett Shuford will join me in conversation to talk about their journey towards parenthood via surrogacy. We'll also find out about their online LGBT community for creatives, parents, performers, Broadway husbands. All that and more coming up on Summer 2022 right here on Season 7 of Rainbow Country.
Hi, I'm writer Adam Smith, author of Deep Sniff, A History of Poppers and Queer Futures. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Robin, this film came out in 1972, was part of the sexual revolution, also part of the golden age of porn. Talk to me about what the golden age of porn was, because your mom was also involved in this time as well.
Yes, my mother was in a iconic film, equally as well, maybe not equally. There is no other film that can hold a candle to the notoriety around the film Deep Throat. But she appeared in a film in 1975 called Misty Beethoven, actually the opening of Misty Beethoven, which has become a cult classic as well and which plays in art houses till this day. And really, I think there was this whole porno chic culture, which Gerard Jr. can speak to, that was actually a term coined during an interview that his father had with a journalist from the New York Times.
The New York Times, yes.
In the early 1970s. So the golden age of porn, the golden age of erotica, it was a time before silicone, before Botox, before the internet, when you had to pick up a phone and dial a number. You had to go to a pay phone. If you wanted to meet somebody somewhere, there was no GPS, babe. You had to figure out how to get there your own self. And, so the women, the actors of that era were real. They had real boobs. They had real lips. They had imperfections. They were naive. It wasn't about how glamorous they looked. It was about how much they enjoyed being on screen. And that's really what I always got, is there was this sense of being genuine. There was this, people had
authentic.
a different, yes, thank you, Mark, because this is the 8th interview we've done today. And I'm starting to lose it a little bit.
And I am honored.
Yeah, man, you are. Thank you. Thank you. And so, it just was a different time. There was this naivete. that permeated our culture, and everybody just wanted to kind of love each other and have a good time. And the golden age of porn really also harkened back to a time where there were films that were made on 35 millimeter. There were plots, there was dialogue, there was scripts, there were script girls, there was wardrobe. There was there could be 20 or 30 people on the set to make a film. The films were big budget. They had an arc. They had characters. They had the character development. You were invested in the outcome of the characters. It wasn't just about the pizza delivery man, knocks on the door and then, that cut to a gangbang. That's not really what that was. And so I think it set the tone for a lot of other films that would come after, but then once the advent of home video and videotapes, it kind of completely changed the flavor of adult cinema of that era.
Gerard.
Yes, Mark.
Deep Throat made a star out of Linda Lovelace. Did your dad create Deep Throat for Linda Lovelace?
Absolutely. She was his muse. She was the inspiration for this film. I mean, back then, it was hard to write a role and then find somebody who could play that, to find the combination of somebody who had not only acting skills, but, the sexual skills as well. Now, Linda's famous, Deep Throat technique is not something that my father or she invented, but my father gave it a name. And that was part of the popularity of the film itself, is that it helped to open up conversations about oral sex. People now had this kind of catchy word and they could talk about it. Also, the novel plot of the clitoris in the throat was something that, again, opened up a dialogue, because the truth was, back then, there were a lot of men who didn't know where the clitoris was, and even still, probably. So it might as well be in the throat. And so it got people talking about this, and couples now were going to see the film, and it became the in thing to do, where you weren't cool or you weren't hip if you hadn't seen Deep Throat. And part of that experience back then, it was a communal experience. It was a theatrical experience where you had to go to a theater in public and sit down while the lights dimmed and watch the movie all together, which is very different than the way adult content is consumed today. With videotape, a lot of these films became what they used to call marital aids. In other words, it wasn't like going to see a movie. It was like you would put it on in the bedroom, in the privacy of your own home, as part of your own, sexual experience.
Right.
And
Christar, talk to me about the title, Deep Throat. Where does this come from? Is there a story behind it? Because I'm assuming there is.
Yes. Well, what Gerard I think what he was getting at is when he was introduced to Linda, he saw what she could do, and he was astounded that he went home and wrote the whole script in a weekend with her as the star. And it's something that our dad just kind of made up, and it really took off. And it was, like we said, it was he made the movie after, or he wrote the script after he saw what she could do.
And if I might jump in, Mark, and
sure.
And say that for our father, he had a lot of sexual content in his films, but he would be proud to say that I don't make sex films, I make films with sex in them. And so the sex, although it's plentiful, is not usually gratuitous. In other words, the sex always drives the plot forward in his films. So in the case of Deep Throat, where he saw Linda's Deep Throat technique, he tried to create a story, tried to craft something where that Deep Throat was integral to the plot. And that was the genesis of Deep Throat.
So Christar, Deep Throat was the first porn film to make millions of dollars at the box office. It helped to create the porn industry. Burt Reynolds even fashioned his character in the 1997 movie Boogie Nights after your dad. Conservative Christian groups, anti-porn feminists, They all wanted to ban the film. You have stars like Martin Scorsese, Truman Capote, Jack Nicholson, Johnny Carson, Frank Sinatra. They all saw the film. Barbara Walters even mentions it in her autobiography, Audition, a Memoir. Robin was mentioning this earlier, the term porno chic. Talk to me about this term porno chic and what does it mean to you, this term porno chic? Because you've got all these stars that know your legacy, that have seen your dad's film, and they even wrote about it. Barbara Walters, hello.
Right.
Porno chic. Talk to me about this term.
Well, it's about is our dad thought himself as an artist, a filmmaker and an artist. So in his films, like we were saying, there was a plot, there was a story, there was, character development. So it was actually what Gerard said, it was a movie that also had sex in it. So it became something as an art piece. So then that coined the term the porno chic, because it wasn't just what they say a fuck film. Mm-hmm. It was actually, it was something to enjoy and appreciate.
Well, Mark, if I may jump in and say that the actual term porno chic was coined by Ralph Blumenthal, who was writing for the New York Times, and did an interview with our father in 1973 and used that term to describe the phenomenon that was happening at the time. And he speaks in great detail about Deep Throat and the reception of it, in that it was at a time where adult films, porn films, were elevated beyond the status of, stag films and loops that were shown in, peep shows on 42nd Street or in the basement of the Knights of Columbus Hall. Suddenly it was a full-length feature film that people were going to see, and it inspired and opened the door for a lot of other filmmakers who were making adult films that were of greater and greater quality, or higher quality with greater production values. And at the same time, Hollywood started to take notice, because during the 70s, the studio system was now an outmoded model, and they were starting to lose money, and they were, spending millions of dollars on a production that made thousands. And then they saw the Deep Throat was made for thousands and made millions. So they thought, we better get in on this. So Hollywood films started to loosen up a bit and deal with more adult subject matter. And as porn films started to get better and better, and there was this notion at the time that the two would merge. And my father felt that people would again evolve beyond these outdated modes of hypocrisy and guilt about sex and sexuality, and that people would feel free to express themselves sexually, and that Hollywood would join together, and you would have major motion pictures that would have Hollywood stars that would go all the way.
Mm. Robin, I have a random question for you.
Yes.
Your mom was porn star and activist Gloria Leonard. Did your mom have a relationship with novelist Norman Mailer?
By golly, by God. Yes, actually she did. They were part of the Mutual Admiration Society. She and Norman were dear friends. They held each other in very high esteem. And there was a time where he was going to write a screenplay for her that was supposed to be like the Gone with the Wind of porn films. I think they had a crush on each other. I do not know that they were ever necessarily officially romantically involved physically, I'm sure, because they were both so cerebral and so very brilliant that I'm sure they probably in their own collective minds, in their individual minds, made love to each other, although perhaps never, in the flesh.
You never know. You never know.
You never know. Some secrets will go to the grave.
Deeper than deep your throat. Deep throat. Don't roll the boat. Don't get your goat.
So, June 17th, 1972, 5 men were arrested. Watergate. Part of Watergate, the Watergate scandal, was an informant known as Deep Throat. Deep Throat turned out to be FBI Associate Director Mark Felt. And Howard Simons, the then managing editor of the Washington Post, dubbed that informant, Mark Felt, Deep Throat, referring to the type of the information that he was getting, and the 1972 film Deep Throat. Gerard Jr., I'm going to start with yourself. The historic nature of your dad's film, made for what, like $25,000, and went on to make like $50 million at the box office or something?
Well,
what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Well, the number that was touted back in the 1970s was $600 million. Now, it's still considered to be the most profitable film of all time. And that's not to say it made more money than Titanic or what have you. It's that for the cost of making the film, the return on the investment hasn't been touched by another film since. And so our father, though, unfortunately, although he was responsible for all the creative aspect, basically wrote, directed, edited, made the music selections, wrote the lyrics to the original songs that were produced for the film. He didn't see that money. He had unscrupulous business partners. The amount of money that it started to make was unprecedented. And basically, they made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and he was lucky to get out of there with his life. So he never saw the money. We didn't see the money. There was a lot of misconception when we were kids that, the success of the film was in the news all the time, and all the money, was part of the story. So a lot of our friends in school and people who we knew thought we were rich, which made being as poor as we were even more difficult, because not only were we, struggling, but we had this conception of us as being rich, and people always asking for money and like that. So there was that part of it too. And so, it was a sore subject for our father, till the end of his life. He appreciated the notoriety that it gave him because it allowed him to make better and better films. But he never saw the money and suffered from it.
Right. And, just to interject for a moment, I know in another interview, Gerard was saying about, show business, and that his father and my mother were definitely in the show part of show business, meaning that they were the real the entertainers and the creatives versus the business, which are those that reaped the benefits financially. And then what I would always say with rich and famous don't necessarily always go together. you can be famous and not rich. Yeah. And that I think would be true for both of our parents who were these real visionaries, but yet because of circumstances never really saw the monetary benefits, gains from their efforts.
Well, Robin, let's stay with yourself. And what does it mean to you in regards to the historic nature of Deep Throat, that it is so tied to American history, especially politics, and Watergate?
So Deep Throat made a huge cultural impact, of course, as we know, on so many different levels and in so many aspects of American pop culture, beyond just politics. It's a word that's now become part of the lexicon in the dictionary for multiple definitions, one of which is to, of course, include in context to politics as, someone who is a whistleblower. But I think that the importance of Deep Throat for these past 50 years really extends beyond just what we imagine the kitsch factor to be, but it's kind of campy in retrospect. It's a lot of fun. But what it did was it created it opened the door to sexual liberation and sex positivity and female empowerment, and really perpetuated the dialogue of freedom of expression.
Mm. And Christar, for yourself, this is your legacy. This is part of your family's legacy, Christar. And the fact that it is so ingrained in American history, what does that personally mean for you?
Well, I'm very proud to be the daughter of my father, who was such an innovator and a groundbreaker.
Well said.
And Gerard and I are in the process of also making a documentary film about the real story, because there are so many people that have taken their opportunity to tell the story, and most of it is untrue, that we really feel like the world needs to see it and know exactly what happened.
There is a documentary about the film Deep Throat, isn't there? Like Inside Deep Throat?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Did you guys have anything to do with that?
Yes. Well, I'll jump in because I actually represented my father on that film. Annie Sprinkle, who was a dear old friend of ours, had reached out because she knew that they were in pre-production on the film. Her brother actually did some of the music that's used in the film, and she suggested that my father participate. Now, at that time, he was still very bitter about Deep Throat, that so many people, and he would say the worst kind of people, made a lot of money off of the film. And so he was really reluctant to participate in what he felt was another opportunity for people to make money off of him, and he wasn't going to see a dime of it. So I met with directors Fenton Bailey and Randy Barbado. I met them each individually and had long conversations with both of them, and they convinced me that their hearts were in the right place. They had a lot of respect for our father and his work. They were seeking to, kind of uncover a true story behind it. So I took that back to my father, and I told him, look, they're going to make this movie with or without you, but if you participate, you'll have the opportunity to tell your side of the story, and some of the truth could get out. So he actually decided to work with them, and appear in the film. I spoke with them about compensating him. Now, because they have they're documentary filmmakers, and they've made some great films in their career and have a lot of integrity. So there's no budget line to pay interviewees when you're a real documentary filmmaker, because it could skew what they say. You're not paying somebody off, you're offering them the opportunity to share their story. But I was able to make a deal with them where I provided some archival material, which these documentaries have huge budgets for home movies and for, still images and, family, personal effects and so forth. And also was able to bring my father in as a consultant on the film. So he actually was able to make more money. If you count, they brought us out to LA for the premiere of the film, and we went to Japan to represent it when it opened overseas. And so he actually, saw more money out of participating in Inside Deep Throat as he did than he did from making the film Deep Throat.
Wow. And is there a timeline for your documentary?
Yes, there is, although it's been overshadowed by this release of Deep Throat, because, the 50th anniversary was looming, and, it's the happy ending that we want our story to have. In other words, I'm telling the story about my father, but we would like for it to end where, we restore the film, reintroduce it to a new audience, and preserve it for future generations. The end. So, this interview is kind of part of that story coming true. And, once we're through the other side of this, I can finish my documentary. We honestly don't know how it will be perceived. There's a lot of interest in the film. We are taking it around the world. We have, interest in other places, but in America, it's been harder to find venues that are willing to show it or people that are willing to get behind it. So we honestly don't know how it will be perceived, but that will be part of the documentary as well. And so that's, we're telling a story while we're right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I look forward to that. Well said. Well said. Gerard Jr., Chris Starr, Robin, I have to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the show. Well said, well done, and well made.
Thank you.
Before you hang up on us here, let me just put it out there that we're excited to come to Canada. We've never been to Toronto. We would love to show the film there. We're actively looking for venues that are open to showing this film. So, DamianoFilms.com, come and find us. We're definitely coming to Montreal. We're in talks with Vancouver. We'd like to make other stops along the way. So if Canada is listening, we want to come visit.
Yes.
For more on Deep Throat and its world tour, check out the website, DamianoFilms.com. Up next, the music of Deep Throat.
My name is Charles Officer, and I'm the writer and director of Invisible Essence, The Little Prince. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
First, there was Deep Throat, then Deep Throat 2. Both featured original music. Up next, the sound of Deep Throat. We'll hear La 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 from the Deep Throat soundtrack written by Gerard Damiano. And I have to say, a track that I'm personally fond of. But starting us off, She's Got to Have It from artist T.J. Stone from the Deep Throat 2 soundtrack.
When she wakes up in the morning, she'll make it hard for you with just one smile. Starry-eyed and yawning, she knows what's coming
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us. And of course our artists and the things that we do globally and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Tara providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, head over to marktara.com where everything is connected and hit the archives banner. Don't forget to keep up to date with the show. Follow me on socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com and iHeartRadio. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, despite all the craziness that's happening in the world these days, remember this. We are living in days of making dreams come true, so believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.